What do the things that we leave behind after we die say about us? It's a dark question that I never really thought about before. At least, not until I played the game What Remains of Edith Finch. It's a game about family and it's about loss, but most of all, I think it's about stories and how we keep them alive. But here's the thing. While I was playing, I kept thinking about my dad and his garage. And honestly, I wasn't expecting that. You see, my dad, he has this thing. He never throws stuff away. Ever. There's always another use for something, and he's never met a cardboard box he didn't like. And his garage, it's not just storage, it's like a museum. Fishing rods that haven't seen the water in 20 years, a dinosaur desk lamp from my childhood, a pair of bicycles from when he and my mom first started dating. I can picture him in there, leafing through a decade's worth of old scientific articles like they were the Dead Sea Scrolls, inspecting each faded page, saying, I might read these again someday. For most of my life, I thought this was just a quirk, kind of endearing, kind of impractical, but after playing What Remains of Edith Finch, I've been thinking about it a little differently. Once I finished the game, my dad's garage made a little more sense to me. Now, if you haven't played the game yet, fair warning, spoilers ahead. Here's the story. The Finch family lives in this sprawling, impossible house. Like someone stacked one house on top of another and on top of another, and somehow it didn't collapse. The Finches believe they're cursed, because one by one, every family member dies, way too soon. Is it really a curse, or just a self-fulfilling prophecy mixed with some seriously negligent parenting? It's up for debate. But what really stuck with me was this. Every time a Finch dies, their bedroom is sealed off, left untouched, a shrine to the life they once had. And you, playing as Edith, the last surviving Finch, walk through these frozen moments in time, piecing together their stories. Every item you come across in the game, a comic book, a child's rubber frog, a set of Halloween decorations, it isn't just an object, but a curated piece of someone's life. Forgive me for a lack of a better comparison, but it's like each item in the Finch house is a Horcrux from Harry Potter, where a small sliver of the owner's soul lives on inside that object. This idea that the objects we leave behind after we die are small pieces of ourselves was something I kept coming back to. It made me think about my dad's garage, how every dusty fishing rod, every stack of yellowed papers, every old bicycle tells a part of his story and about the people he loves. There's a painting by my late aunt that he still polishes and cares for. The painting never makes it inside the house, but I don't think that matters. It's not about displaying it. It's about the ritual of caring for it and the act of remembering his sister. Throughout What Remains of Edith Finch, there are many compelling moments. One such is when we step into Calvin Finch's room. You see, Calvin was just a kid when he died, and his room is frozen in time like the others. A tiny astronaut helmet on a shelf, a toy rocket dangling from the ceiling, a half-read book. You see, Calvin wanted to be an explorer. He spent hours on his swing set, pumping his legs, trying to go higher and higher, as if he could break free from gravity itself. And in the game, he does. He swings so high he launches off the cliffside into the unknown. Calvin's parents never took down that swing. They never packed up his things, because packing them up, that would mean admitting he was never coming back. I think we can all understand that perspective. If you've ever lost someone, you know exactly why we hold on to their things. We don't always keep things because they're useful. Sometimes we keep them because they tie us to other people and memories. where we were, who we were with, what it felt like in that moment. My dad doesn't need a stack of old scientific papers, but when he flips through them, he sees the young scientist he was when he first read them. And the fishing rods, they aren't really about fishing. They're about the mornings he spent with my brother and me. Without those things, it's not just the objects that are gone, it's the pieces of himself that might slip away too. And maybe that's why losing these cherished things feels so terrifying. I live near Los Angeles, and at the time of writing this essay, the city is threatened by wildfires. After some of my friends and loved ones lost their homes, I've been thinking a lot about what it would mean to lose everything. Not just the objects, but the memories tied to them. What does it mean to see everything holding your past together? The proof of your experiences, your relationships, vanish. We say objects are just things, but losing them can feel like losing context. Listening to people who have lost their homes, it's not the expensive stuff that they miss most. Instead, it's always the irreplaceable items imbued with memory that they miss. I think about my dad and what he would take from the garage during a fire. Maybe my sister's painting? And what about Edith, wandering through the Finch house? After finishing the game and reflecting on it, I started thinking not just about what we remember, but also about what we forget. How many of our memories are curated and rewritten by the things we choose to hold on to? Take Barbara Finch, for example. Her whole life gets boiled down to a single story, a cheesy horror comic that turns her tragedy into entertainment.
Oh dear.
Surprise! Bravo! You were wonderful!
The monsters had come to surprise her. For Barbara, it was a dream come true. Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life. I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom.
But the real Barbara? Who she was when the camera wasn't rolling, what she was like around her family, what her quirks and habits were, all lost, replaced by the one story everyone else decided to remember. When my dad talks about those old bicycles, he doesn't mention why they're both unusual shades of purple, or why one has a bent handlebar. He talks about the early morning rides with my mom, and about how young and unstoppable they were. And I think that's what I took away from What Remains of Edith Finch. We don't get to decide which parts of us will last. We don't choose what people hold on to, what they'll pass down, or what they'll forget. The things we leave behind, they aren't ours anymore. They belong to the people who remember us, shaped by the stories they choose to tell. They smooth out the rough edges, fill in the gaps, and polish the memories until they're the ones that are real. The Finch house, it's a monument to people who never got to choose what remained of them. Their stories were told by the objects they left behind and by the people who decided what to remember. Maybe that's why we hold on to things. Not because they help us remember, but because without them, we're afraid we might forget.